Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez here with you. We're going to have Lauren Kalil joining us in just a second. She's over in the UK at FitFest. Tommy and Lauren just spoke with BKG and Snorri Barron. That's the first time we ever had Bjorgvin on the show, right?
I want to say we may have had him back in the day.
I don't remember ever interviewing him.
And it could have been maybe at a live event. I'm not.
Possibly like a quick sort of how you doing type interview, checking in.
Yeah, but he's been one of the kind of what a white whale, if you will. But it was good to have him on. We had a good chat with them, and they'd just gotten into UK on FitFest, and we're having some fun travel experiences, and it was just good to catch up with them.
We have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah,
competition's underway in two, as if you're listening to this right now, I think in all three at this point, right? We have FitFest at UK. So we're recording this on a Thursday. That gets started this weekend, right?
For the elite athletes, it's only 2 days.
It's 2 days. Saturday, so Monday, okay. So that hasn't started yet. We have the Legends Championship that is underway, and the Dubai Fitness Championship that by the time you listen to this is underway. As we record it, it hasn't started yet. They're about, I think, a little more than 15, 16 hours before they drop the puck on that event. And then we also, this is something you and I didn't discuss beforehand, but we also need to talk about the Judges Association that has just been announced.
Yep.
So that was, the PFAA put this out, and I have to look because it just popped into my head, but I know that we wanted to talk about this, that the judges are basically organizing. I don't want to say unionizing. That's a little too formal, but they are organizing.
Yes. Yep. And this is something that's been kind of in the works behind the scenes for a little while. And the group, I believe the organization should be called the Association of Fitness Judges, and it'll be a nonprofit, a California-based nonprofit. And I think this is something that has been in the works over the last couple of years as the next step forward in trying to help, maybe professionalize the sport and collectivize the judges as a group, as well as do a much better job in my conversations with them of sharing information and experience to give even like newer judges training and make it a more professional and comprehensive experience out there. Obviously, anytime you're a judge or a ref of any sport, you tend to be, held under pretty intense scrutiny under a microscope many times. But what they're trying to do is to make sure that they consistently help set up and put new and existing judges in good positions to support the athletes, their performances, as well as, kind of push the sport forward in terms of like sharing best practices and things like that. And they released a press release on Tuesday on some of the responsibilities and goals that they're trying to do. One of which is a judges directory. So create a database of judges that includes their past experiences and their capabilities, so that whether you're in a competition or even like a training camp, for example, like some training camps brought out games judges to help judge them during quarterfinals, that they are more accessible in a way that's easy for them to use and leverage those resources from the judging perspective. Another aspect is, the competition side of things. So obviously, like, they want to have a method of giving feedback and mentorship to help judges improve. And also, that benefits the athlete as well. So they also want to support competitions and staffing and helping take that aspect off of competitions' plates, if you will, or work more closely with them. And then also education is the other kind of third pillar that they sent out. So whether that's, documents and videos and seminars, covering like, what you can expect if you're a new judge, best practices, and everything from live competition to online competition. So they're working with the PFAA to kind of develop this. They're utilizing a pretty broad database of judges as well. And I think this is just kind of the next step, working in association with the athletes to kind of just help I don't know, I guess leverage their power as a unified group, I think.
I have the website here, and I'll share that in a second for people who might be watching this. But before we do that, let's get to our sponsor for today, because we just
blasted
right into this. Our sponsor for today is Strongest. So Strongest is an app available in the App Store. It's not available for Google or Android just yet, but it's available for iPhone, and it hooks up your Apple Watch. It's a pretty cool app. It helps you attain a higher level of fitness and achieve more goals by reverse engineering the desired end state of each workout and delivering step-by-step training guidance to ensure that you reach that end state. Matthew Russell and his team have meticulously designed Strongest AI for iPhone and Apple Watch to help garage gym athletes train with more intensity, stay accountable to a program, and reach the highest levels of human performance through proven fitness methodologies. So every split of every movement and every workout is managed with a timer and delivered with step-by-step pacing guidance to your phone and watch. Assuming you set a goal and maintain that pace, you're guaranteed to meet your own standards of performance and achieve more goals. And then if you don't, you have the data to understand why you didn't. It is absolutely free to download. So if you're an iPhone user, check this thing out, mess around with it, and let us know what you think about it, because Matthew is a self-proclaimed kind of just workout nerd who loves numbers and data, and he's always looking to make this things better, and he's still working on some pretty cool features that I think will be rolled out here in the coming months. But if you guys want to download it, it's absolutely free. Strongest, just search for it on the App Store. Create an account, poke around in there, let us know what you think, and then we're happy to give that feedback back to Matthew as he looks to make this thing better. But it's strongest.app if you want to check it out on the web, or just go into the App Store and download it. It's really cool. It's got every benchmark workout in there. So if you have a goal time for Fran, for example, you can go into the app, you can select Fran as a workout, and then you can tell it, hey, I want to get to 5 minutes or whatever it is on Fran. Here's how I plan on breaking it up. And then the app will tell you exactly how long you have to do each movement, how much rest you can take. It's really cool to use. So
this is an app that makes me feel old, because I'm like, oh, you kids don't know how good you have it these days.
I know, right?
Back in my day, if I wanted a sub, 3-minute Fran, I didn't do it the old-fashioned way with blood and sweat. And
Pat Sherwood yelling at you.
I didn't get a pacing chart. I had Pat Sherwood throwing sand and insults my way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Okay, but yeah, Strongest.app. It's a great product, guys. Check it out. It's absolutely free. Just download it, create an account, mess around with it. Let us know what you think, because there's a lot of cool features that are going to be coming as Matthew and his team continue to put that thing together. All right, I mentioned the website for it's the Association of Fitness Judges. So here it is. I'll pop it up on screen here. Their mission right here is, and I'll read this verbatim for those of you who are just listening. The purpose shall include promotion of the professional development and advancement of officials in the sport of functional fitness, judges, to include the safety of judges and athletes, fairness and consistency in standards for competitions, and by developing a greater degree of transparency between athletes, coaches, event organizers, and judges, inclusive of all individuals and organizations involved in the sport of functional fitness. They have a goal section here with a judges directory, competition, education. They have some links here, and then they have some contact information as well. But as you mentioned, Tommy, just a great, I think, step in trying to further professionalize things in the sport.
Yep. So,
and we are going to hope to have a representative of theirs on relatively soon.
Yep.
Efforting. All right, let's get into competition stuff. And we'll start with Dubai, because that is getting ready as we sit here and record on Thursday morning. That will start, I think it starts in the middle of the night, West Coast time.
Yeah.
It's early morning on the East.
I want to say it's almost like exactly 12 hours opposite of us. So it's
yeah, right now, if you go to their YouTube channel, the Dubai Fitness Championship YouTube channel, they have 2 upcoming live streams scheduled. One for day 2 that is scheduled for December 9th at 3 a.m. Pacific, and one for day 3 that is scheduled for December 10th.
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah. It's possible that they're not going to stream the first one because it's maybe an offsite.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because they do a lot of stuff that is not like in a traditional arena or something like that. So, All right. I got Spike coming in. What's up, dude? Okay. We didn't want to go through kind of like everything that's going on here, but we did have some top storylines that we wanted to get to you guys as we get set for this event. So we'll start on the women's side. And there are a lot of women that we're used to seeing compete on a team now who are trying their hand at the individual competition.
Yeah, there's one of the things that stood out is a lot of the 2023 team athletes that, whether we're on some pretty recognizable affiliate teams that are kind of, I don't know if they're necessarily going to make the jump, but maybe the intention is to test the waters and eventually go individual. But you look at Brittany Weiss, Kyra Milligan, Ingrid Hodenemir from Oslo, Devin Kim from Invictus. I mean, it's a pretty heavy Invictus crew, including Jorge on the men's side as well. But I mean, you even go down the line too from the Oslo Blackout team. Veslamoy, I apologize if I messed up your name. Kolstad is their last name. So you have some team games athletes on the women's side across the board that are hitting it here. And we saw Lena compete last year at this event before ultimately going individual. And I think there's a higher possibility that a lot of these women go individual this time around as well. But yeah,
let's talk about. Go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, and I also think there's and this is kind of dovetailing into another one. I think in the same vein where there's like these individual or these team athletes maybe trying to kind of break through on the individual side. I think there's a handful of women that are individual games athletes that are maybe looking to try and make that next step after kind of hovering very closely in that upper echelon this year. That's Karin Frey, who won this event last year. Emily Rolfe, who had a tremendous comeback season after getting withdrawn and was 12. And then Emma Tall, who it felt like she was pretty much in the top 10 the entire weekend until she fell out just at the last couple of events and finished 11th. So, some women that are, hanging there in the top 15, maybe not quite through that threshold in the top 10, but they continue to compete and you continue to get better each time we see them at a high level competition. And this is a good opportunity to where we've seen it in the past where for someone like Lazar Jukic, who being able to kind of compete and contend for a podium spot at one of these types of events was a good canary in the coal mine for him being a top 10 athlete on a regular basis. And I think this could be the case for one of them if, Karin's already won this once. But if Emily and Emma and Karin are all there battling at the top the entire way, this is where you start to pour in consistency of performance at a high level. And that also just helps the morale as well. When you show up to an event, you're like, I'm one of the best here and I'm going to prove it.
Breakout candidates on the women's side, because as you just got done mentioning, this is a competition where I think people can use it. I mean, I know we're not in technically the calendar year of 2024, but it is close enough to where you have a strong performance here. It does tend to set you up nicely going into at least the first part of the following season.
Yeah, I mean, there's some intriguing names out there that could potentially make at least a little bit of a splash. I think you look at Allison Nguyen from Training Think Tank, but even someone like Claudia Gluck, who was starting to get a little bit of press last year, coming up through semifinals, and then just came up a little bit short and didn't quite have the same performance that you might have hoped. I also think there's someone like Dana Paran that could win an event. Last year she snatched 210 at semifinals in North America, and I think that's an easy way to get attention for people is if you can go up and win an event, particularly the lifting. And if that's something that last year Dubai was really heavy and explosive. So if that programming follows suit or we see something similar, then she could have a strong performance and maybe surprise some people. She was in the mid 20s last year at semifinals, 23, I think, in North America West. So it's possible that we could see that next evolution moving up into the teens or even maybe pushing around the top 10, which if if we're being honest, this year that could be a game spot, right? Because we're looking at 11, 12, 10 being games qualifiers, depending on what the strength schedule looks like. So it's not out of the woodwork for something like this to happen.
Over on the men's side, I think this is where I think most people are going to be watching. Not to take anything away from the women, but there are some heavyweight contenders, games podium contenders who are going to be going head to head over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, Ricky and Roman are the two headliners for, guys that have Roman, obviously, at the top the last 2 years, Ricky prior, and then and after his suspension, both of them pushing for the top spot overall. I think you loop Chandler and Lazar in there as well. It's kind of like this 4-way battle for desert supremacy, if you will. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to be on social media recently, so I can't double check to make sure there haven't been any withdrawals. But if these are the 4 that show up and they're at a decent strength, I'd be interested to see how they continue coming off of Rogue in particular. Obviously, Chandler had some strong performances, but started to fade towards the back end of Rogue, and then I think that was maybe a byproduct of him kind of emptying the tank a little bit on the deadlift,
having to pull 16 different bars or whatever it was that he had.
Yeah, but I mean, Roman and Ricky were both in the mix in the top 5. Lazar was a little bit lower in 14, but he tends to do a little bit better close to home. And this isn't a competition that he's performed well at for multiple years on end. So it could be a fun competition. Remember, Chandler was supposed to compete in Dubai. I want to say it was in 2020. And last minute got called back. I think this was when he was still in the military, so he didn't get to. But this would be a fun way to see where they're at. I also think there's some athletes that this is kind of like an interesting proving grounds as far as testing the waters to see where they're at, and that are in very different paths. So Kai and Kalil, both of the qualifiers from South America, will be there out of Brazil, seeing kind of where they're at, taking a next step and having more international competition. Anuel Kai was a guy who got a lot of press last year as a potential guy who can make some waves after some strong performances at events like this and around the globe. Obviously didn't make the games, didn't have quite the semifinals that he wanted, but this is an opportunity for him to continue to build. And then 2 guys that I think are maybe trying to, I don't know, reignite some stuff. One being Griffin Raleigh, and then Elliot Simmons, who, if you haven't already, go check it out on Instagram. He's been very open about some of the struggles that he's had, both coming from injury, illness, some mental health struggles and stuff that he's worked through and had to kind of rebuild. And he's been very forthcoming about it. And I think it's been very refreshing to see that and kind of hear that from a high level athlete and someone who's been a generally just positive and bright human in the space. That he's been open about sharing that. So definitely go check that out. It'd be interesting to see how they fare this weekend. Elliot has been a mainstay at this competition for as long as I can remember. Obviously they were him and Jamie were based out of the UAE. They coached and trained out of Abu Dhabi for a long time. And so this is all, was very much kind of a second home for them. And I think this is a good competition for him to kind of get back into the swing of things.
Final question I have is, if you've been lucky enough to have attended that competition, and it is viewed as one of the, I guess, big 3 off-season competitions along with Wodapalooza and Rogue, but what makes it such a unique competition?
I think their willingness to get outside of conventional programming, right? They have at their disposal access to some things that you just simply won't ever get to do again. I mean, last year they climbed the Burj Khalifa. They ran the stairs of that. I mean, you literally can't do that anywhere else in the world. Whether it was in in 2019, the desert run, or the swim event in front of the Burj Al Arab, 2020 doing the ski hill inside, or 2021, no, 22 in ski. I'm getting all of them mixed up. I've been out there too many times, but getting to run up and down and work out on the ski mountain inside one of the Dubai. It's either the Mall of the Emirates or the Dubai Mall. I always get them mixed up. But there's just some stuff that you won't get to do anywhere else. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some classic CrossFit stuff. There's going to be some heavy stuff, some gymnastics skill stuff. But honestly, I think they're pretty fearless with programming. So you're going to get to try some really unique stuff in that regard.
You can go to the Dubai Fitness Championship YouTube channel. And again, right now, there are 2 live streams scheduled. One for day 2 that is scheduled to go December 9th at 3 a.m. Pacific time. And then one for December 10th at the same time. I think, well, actually, it doesn't say at the same time, but it's those are the 2. So if you're not subscribed to that, go subscribe, and then you'll get notified as to when they're going live. But you should be able to watch some of the action there. And that's always a great competition. Looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. Now, the other one going on this weekend is FitFest. That's over in the UK. Lauren Kalil is there. And earlier, Tommy and Lauren sat down with Bjorgvin Karl Guomundsson and his manager, Snorri.
All right, now let's welcome in our guests all the way from the UK. I think you guys are in Birmingham now.
Are we in Coventry? We have no idea where we are. It's been a bit of a mess, but we are somewhere in the vicinity of Birmingham, yes.
Well, we don't know what time zone we're in. It's a little bit dark. We're trying to set the mood, the ambiance here.
I like
before everything kicks off.
Yep. Obviously, as you guys can see, if you're watching on YouTube, it's Lauren joining us alongside Snorri and Bjorgvin Karl Guomundsson. They are on their way to, I guess they're now in the UK for FitFest this weekend. First things first, you mentioned that it was a little crazy. How was the travel plan so far?
Well, they look at me because they've already heard my travel plans. Tommy, I almost had your curse because I full on had to sprint to my connection because in good old Syracuse, New York, where there's snow and ice all the time, they forgot to de-ice the plane until last minute. So I was just about the last person on the plane. I heard them calling my name on the loudspeaker. They're calling my cell phone. Luckily, I made it. Then I found these 2 in the airport, and we've been traveling to get here.
Oh, man. I love to hear
How was your flight?
Well, our flights were perfect, I think. But it was just a bit of change of plans with hotels switching last minute. So we're somewhere in a forest outside of civilization. It feels like we're in a castle or something, but it's really nice. I won't be complaining. It's just different to what I expected.
Do you feel relaxed yet?
Yeah, I would say I'm always pretty relaxed. But I would also like to point out one thing. I think the drive from London to Birmingham was like 3 times as long as our flight, pretty much. So the flight over here was pretty easy.
Oh man, so it was just the drive over. At least you got to see a little bit of maybe the UK countryside, maybe explore.
Whoa! What do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of gray and rainy out here right now.
Yeah, we've got the fog and the rain going, so didn't really see all that much.
The dimness of our video and the lighting is a good indication of what we see outside all day today.
Fair enough, but there is some bright spots ahead of you guys. There's FitFest coming up. From the outside perspective, how much do you know about how the competition is going to flow, what to expect, and really what are the expectations for you guys, both as athletes and Snorri, from what you've seen on the back end for this competition in a very kind of unique format?
Was that a question for me?
Yeah,
yes,
I think
so.
Yeah. So basically, we have been told the workouts. Last week, I've had some time to think about them, but obviously, I haven't met up with anyone from the team because we're all traveling in today. This will probably be my 3rd time competing in a team competition. I did the invitationals, I think 3 times. But that was only 4 people on a team. This is 6. It's a little different, but I also do think that it's going to be, it will be everyone taking the floor at the same time. It will be maybe just the boys 2 guys and 1 girl, and then also just like individualized. So I think it's actually going to be like a pretty good competition to watch. And for me personally, I think it's just going to be it's a nice way to be back on the competition floor, but still not with the intentions, like same intentions like at the games or similar competition.
Have you ever been drafted on a team before? Like in PE class in school for like kickball or anything? What was that like?
Have I?
Have you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, many.
Were you a first pick ever?
I was always the first pick. You know that. But no, not in this context. I mean, they just basically picked me from this. Were they on Talking Elite Fitness, or were they somewhere else when they picked the team?
Yeah, they did it on their own channel, I think.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, well, I just want to say, Danielle, thank you for picking me on your team.
Well, Snorri, does the fact that it's a little bit more relaxed, does it change anything for you? Does the competition scope kind of ease up a little bit for you when it's not necessarily as high a pressure scenario?
Yeah, this is a totally different prospect in that sense. We're deep in the off season for the athletes, and it's just great to be able to have an event like this. They'll be competing, they'll be going hard, but just the programming and the setup is not made to beat down their bodies. It's not a total test of fitness. It's more a test of skills, and it's more done to entertain the crowd and at the same time entertain the athletes. So I think this formula is something that, if proven successful this weekend, we can see more of this, and we can have more athlete participation in a number of events, because they don't feel like grinding themselves to the bone at this point in time. They're still recovering after, most of them did the Rogue Invitational after the games, and now is the time where they should just be healing and building for the new season. And this links in with that. This fits that type of a mold, gets them out on a competition floor, makes the audience happy, makes their sponsors happy. So I don't have too many things negative to say about it, if any. I'm just really looking forward to see how this all pans out.
Well, and even looking at the athlete rosters, I think almost half of the athletes competing are athletes that you work with or work with Backland. At what point were conversations had and you started talking to your athletes that, hey, this might be a really great opportunity to get competition experience, get exposure, but in a completely different way?
Yeah, they pitched this idea at some point this summer. And before the games, we weren't even ready to have any of these conversations. Anything before the games is the games. Anything after the games, we can start chatting again. We then know how the athletes feel, what they're up for, and all of that. So I'd say in August, September, those conversations really gathered pace. But just the setup of this thing, a lot of athletes were positive towards it. They didn't feel like entering a full-blown competition, but a showcase like this, it's fun. I mean, these are people that get along really well. We have 18 fantastic athletes here. Everyone is here just to have a good time.
Yeah, and I think that solves one of the pieces of the equation that people have been talking about in the sport for a long time. How do we get the big name athletes? You know, BK, you're a part of that. How do we get them out in front of more fans more regularly in a competition style setting without necessarily adding more potential for injury, overuse, and all the things that could be a drawback with competition and really kind of like grinding you down to a pulp? And so with that in mind, I'm curious, BK, is there something that you look at as far as like a checklist for me to even consider coming to this event? These are some things I got to know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like there's just a big difference in between doing an individual competition and then doing it on a team, if not 6 people team. So obviously looking when Snorri, when you introduced the idea, it was like 6 people on a team. It's more of a showcase. And, at that point, it was almost like a yes, like right away. It would be hard for them to make us, like super sore or like getting out of the training shape that we are in now with having so many people on a team. So I think it's just makes sense for so many people to do this at this time. And like Snorri was saying, This also, let's say if we would do this again, we could probably do this like quickly again. It wouldn't have to be like 6 months preparation for this like we do with normal competitions. So yeah, I'm just, like I said, we haven't really tried anything like this. We'll see over the weekend, but I'm pretty positive that this will be a success.
Speaking to the preparation for this competition, kind of a two-part question. Is there anything in your training that you've been implementing to get ready for this? And then on the flip side, I mean, these are your competitors. You don't really train with them. What is it going to be like with communication when you are actually out on the floor?
Yeah, I think the communication is definitely going to be like probably the biggest factor, honestly, because we've got so many people.
6-person worm, too.
Yeah, 6-person worm. We've got all of the athletes basically at the same level now put into a team. So, I mean, a good communication is going to be a key for the team to win 100%. Like we saw with the invitationals back in the day. In preparation for this one, no, I really haven't been prepping for this competition, but I've had probably the last 4 or 5 weeks since after the Rogue have probably been the best 4 or 5 weeks of this year in training. So, I would say that I'm in pretty good shape right now.
Well, you say they've been the best weeks. What contributes to that? Is it being healthy? Is it just like finally having a cool down period from high level competition? What is that?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things because obviously early on last season, I hurt my back a little bit. Well, it wasn't a little bit, it was like quite a lot. But and then I just carried that throughout the year, basically, because I didn't have enough time for it to heal properly. And I didn't really have the time, right? So like after the semifinals, you could take like, a week off or so, but it should have been much, much more in order to get it to be 100%. Then at the games, obviously what happened. So after the games, we focused on getting it back to 100%. And it was actually very good before the Rogue, held up through Rogue. And then after I came home, I feel like I've been like pretty much spot on with everything. So already looking forward to the next season.
Does your team have a group text going on right now?
No, we don't have a group text, but I texted Daniel Brandon like 5 minutes ago, and then Jason Hopper maybe 15 minutes ago. So I've talked to 2 of them.
So truly communication won't happen until tomorrow night when you're on the floor?
Well, we might schedule a meeting in the morning and we'll talk the workouts through. And I think, with the experience that we have as a team, I think we have quite a lot of games experience under the belt. I think we are a pretty strong like contender to win the competition. And I think that's on everyone's minds is to come here. We want to compete. And when you put us in this like competition setup, I don't think anyone here wants to lose. Like we want to bring out the best in us. And I think we have everything we need to win.
If you don't in fact win, what do you think it's going to be? Like, why do you think your team won't win? Do you think that there's going to be too many people that want to call the shots? Do you think that there's going to be a break in any of the movements, communication? What do you think like the weakness of your team is?
Give us your honest assessment.
Go
by teammate.
The only thing is maybe if like Jason Hopper wants to become the captain of the team, because we know it's Danielle. I'm just a little bit afraid of him and what he does. I fully trust Dallin and I fully trust Thuri and Ariel. So it's just about what Jason Hopper decides to do.
Hopper's the wild card. I like that.
A lot of pressure on Jason right now.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Kind of circling back just a little bit, you mentioned like the injury, and I think a lot of people, maybe from the public, and this could be a U.S. perspective, right? Just because we don't get as much exposure to some of the athletes in Europe. Can you give us a little more insight into like what the injury was and what that process was fighting through it? Because a lot of people, I think, realize the extent of it at the games this year on the platform for the lifting events when you had to basically throw like 100 pounds on there and just be content with that. Maybe just kind of chat through what that process was, what happened, and ultimately how you kind of worked through it.
Mm-hmm. So, to make a very long story short, like I was saying, this is mostly just an overuse, and might appear in the back, but the back was never the problem. The roots of the problem was that the psoas on the left side was getting so tied up because of this like overuse. I've got, like I've mentioned before, I think that my right hip basically doesn't work as well as the left one, so left one has to take over a lot of the work that I do. But with like seeing being in treatments like every now and then, I can keep that down and like train properly. But at that time, maybe I had been slacking a little bit off in terms of like following up on the body and making sure that it was like super healthy, and I was maybe crossing the training line a little bit too often. And basically what that meant was that the left psoas just got too caught up and like was overworking so much, and it started pulling on the vertebrae on the lower back. Really it isn't, it's pretty simple, but I get it. We had some issues like finding it out at first if it was actually the psoas, but we worked so much on the back that it didn't really make any sense that it was coming just from that. But then we made the final breakthrough actually at the games on the Saturday when we found it out that it was actually coming from the front and not from the back. And
you didn't find that out till the games?
We didn't find that out like till the games. We worked on it, but not nearly enough. It was sneaky because I could wake up one day and it was much better, but then I would wake up the day after and I couldn't put the socks on. So it was like, it's one of those like almost like floating injuries. It would be like maybe a little bit to the right, maybe a little bit to the left. So it was like a tricky one. But then as soon as we found that out, then we could start working on that after the games. It got so much better in, I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks. But that also meant that I couldn't do much for 3 or 4 weeks after the games. But that's also the time you want to be resting anyways. Then soon after that, the rogue came up, and obviously I hadn't been deadlifting too much. So my numbers weren't like they have been. But like I was saying, after the rogue, I've been pretty much spot on and haven't felt the back at all. So I'm pretty positive with the help from my team that we have basically fixed the problem. But I'm also aware of those things now, and hopefully I can prevent that from coming up again.
Yeah.
So then, oh, sorry. Do you want to follow up,
I was just going to say, like, Snorri, like I had a quick follow-up from you about basically kind of being, alongside BK for that process, right? Because you've worked with him for a long time, and you have this high-profile moment like the games where everyone is excited to see what happened, and you have to watch one of your athletes go out there and just basically throw 95 pounds on, knowing that like the heart and the desire is there, but there's this one little thing that's keeping you back. And I imagine that's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's not really frustrating for me. We hadn't really chatted there on the Saturday, and he did phenomenal in the workouts leading up to it. So in my mind, he had already conquered it or figured out a way to circumvent it. I never really expected him to set the world on fire in that Saturday night's lift, but I expected some kind of a performance from him. So watching that and just realizing, because of course I knew the story, we chat a lot, and he had kept me very well updated on this injury, and I found him to be quite modest when he was explaining it. It was serious, and there was a time where he was contemplating whether he should pull out of the games or whatever, because they just couldn't figure out what this was. And he was already in America, and day after day after day, he was just in terrible pain, not able to apply himself. And there was a critical time in there, and then they made a breakthrough. It was pretty incredible, because you sent me a message saying, this is not getting any better. I might need to start making some big decisions here. And then the day after, I get a message, hey, I'm so much better. So game's on. Yeah. And And from there, it felt like he shifted into a very positive mindset there as well. And he may have been toughing out more than he told anyone about, but at least he regained his belief. Mm-hmm. And then he started the games off on fire. And if we discount that lifting event and how the final day went, because he was obviously in terrible pain, up until then, I mean, he was in and around the podium. He was in the top 10. And after the first day, I think you were in third place, if I remember correctly. You were definitely performing to the standards you hold yourself to, and you were in great shape. So watching it kind of all fade away in that lifting event, it's hard to take. It's we have a long history and a friendship that really matters. So it was very hard to witness. But after chatting about it and seeing that he was still in a good headspace, that's, of course, better. And there will be games after these games. And all I can hope for is that, because he's in great shape and he's training really well, all I can hope for is that it all aligns next year, because he's got plenty more left on the tank.
Mm-hmm. So now that that mindset has had to shift, you were considering maybe having a change when you thought maybe you couldn't come back from this injury, you couldn't figure it out. What has gone into your training that now switches that gear to get you back on track to achieve your goal, which is podium, win the games? Like, I don't know that I've ever asked you, like, what is the ultimate goal for the season?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I would still be doing this if the goal wasn't to win. I'm going into my 11th season. Actually, probably the 12th, because I didn't qualify my first year. But so basically, for an example, now one of the things that I want to focus on is using this time when it's like a high off season to not get into this kind of like autopilot training, which also consists of just making every session like worth it, or like trying to get as much quality I can get out of every session, and then just also listening a little better to the body, because you always think like, yeah, it's just December, it's fine if my knee hurts a little bit, and then the knee 3 weeks later is still hurting a little bit. You know what I mean? So you're not dragging the injuries or like nagging injuries with you into the season. Rather focus on, if something happens, you get on it right away, you get as much quality training as I can. And then also just main thing is basically to listen to the body. So if I feel like overall the quality is, maybe lowering a little bit, energy is like a little less, that also means that I probably need a little bit more rest. I'm also not getting younger. You just have to face that, right? So
none of us are. It's okay.
Yeah. But all in all, I think I'm in much better shape than I was in 19 when I podiumed, and much better shape than in 15. So I don't think it's not a big change that needs to change. I just think that I need to be a little bit more on it these next few months. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, your consistency speaks to that, right? I mean, you mentioned that it's maybe year 12, but it's 10 straight games. You're an elite company there. It's I will go ahead and say it. You technically finished 11th, but you were tied for points with 10. So in my mind, at least as points go, that's 9 years of being a top 10 athlete. And even looking at the leaderboard this year, I think it's talking about the injury and what that did in that event speaks to how close you were in the podium hunt, because realistically, you were only 70 points back of fourth, and you took a 0 on the lifting event. And so anything, injury be damned, puts you right back in that hunt. So while to the casual viewer, it may seem a lot further, you were actually really just a couple lifts and being slightly healthy and one little psoas away from being right there in the mix. Yeah. I mean, even just hearing that, does that fire you up? Is that something that you use as fuel?
Yeah, I would say definitely. While I'm really happy that I'm still performing at this level, and with the years going by, I'm still getting better and better. But it's also because I'm in a very good relationship with my coach, and we're always trying to find new ways to get better. So we always enter the season with new goals in mind and new ideas, new focus points, which basically keeps me motivated.
Mhm.
It's not like it's one more year, I guess we just have to do the same thing. Like, that's never the attitude. The attitude is always to try to find new ways to be better. And I guess that has been the reason why I'm, always qualifying.
Mhm.
Are you still the king of Europe?
Of course I am.
What kind of question is that?
I wanted to put you on the spot. I wanted to ask. Like, you've earned this nickname from, being at the top of the European athletes and the men's field for so long. Is it harder? Is there a lot of pressure to maintain that, especially as we talk like training age and getting like deeper into your career?
No, I honestly wouldn't say so. Like, I find this more of a humor and joke around it. Like, I don't think anyone should take me or anyone else too seriously when we joke about being king of Europe or whatever. Like, we've got great athletes that have come up along with me, like, Jonne and Lazar and Lucas Högberg and, Adrian and Frederick. And, there's so many athletes that have been to the games. And, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the competition that I've had in Europe.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty good answer, I have to be honest.
It was a perfect answer.
Were you surprised that was a very good answer, so well thought out? And Snorri was taking a picture of him being the king earlier today.
Yeah, well, you'll just have to see it when it's posted. But we have a ritual that involves him being a king. We use every opportunity for that. Well, and we found one today, much to her amusement.
Well, that speaks to something I think that maybe some people aren't as clued into. Like, BK, and I've always found you to have a really good sense of humor, like a sneaky good sense of humor, and not only like, joking around, whatever, but also like kind of taking the piss out of people sometimes when it's appropriate. I want to hear from Snorri. Like, what is it about BK's personality that maybe people don't realize, or maybe even touching to that a little bit, like, kind of shed some insight from the manager perspective, because you get to see what happens behind the scenes and what people don't see when the stone-faced killer comes out there on the competition floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you get to know him, he is a very different person to what you see on the competition floor. He's very focused there. The same goes for in training. I mean, he's not joking around while he is smashing the ski erg or whatever, He is he takes his sport very seriously, but he doesn't take himself very seriously. So, and the more you get to know him, the more you will see that side of him. Maybe the key thing is he doesn't feel the need to rub everyone up in his personality or to steal anyone's thunder or to be the center of attention anywhere. He doesn't feel the need for that. So sometimes you get coverage for those types that just love the spotlight. And we have a few of them in Iceland, all of them female. So they have basically just taken the spotlight off of him. It's to a fault that he happens to be Icelandic, because if he were representing somewhere where he didn't have competitors for the spotlight like the daughters are, then I assume he would be featured more and more people would realize what he's all about. But he is great company. We have traveled all over the world together multiple times, and it's always something I look forward to.
Well, is there a travel tradition that you guys have?
Is what?
Is there a travel tradition that you guys have?
We go to Nando's when we can.
Nice.
That's for sure. No, we just keep it light. We just have a great time traveling together.
It's funny you mentioned the spotlight thing, and I think there's a clip that's like burned in my mind from the lead up and prep for the Invitational, and it cracks me up every time I see it. And I think BK, you and Jonna were in CrossFit Reykjavik, I think, preparing, and I think the girls are taking forever to get ready. It might be at a different gym, but I have to go look it up, and I'll share it at some point with our listener group. You have to go watch it. It's some of the lead up coverage to one of the Invitational teams that you were on. And I could just see you and Jonna just like scratching your head while the girls are just taking forever to get ready, to get going on the team training. And it's just the funniest juxtaposition of character and personality and what kind of drives you guys in training. And I think it's just the best. Sorry, that just popped in my head, but you have to go watch
I think this was in 2014 in Madrid. It was the first year we were at the, what was the venue called in Madrid?
Caja Mágica.
Caja Mágica.
I probably pronounced it all wrong, but something like that.
Yeah, it's when Sarah and Catherine took, I don't know, a couple of hours to get ready.
Yeah.
You just want to leave it at that?
Yeah, I was just want to leave it there.
Yeah, the look on your
Okay,
face.
so well, you're on a team again, 3 men, 3 women. What do you think that there's somebody who is going to be running late, somebody who like has a last minute bathroom break? Like what are the superlatives, will you, for your teammates and yourself?
I mean, I 30 is going to be on time. That's for sure. I know she's on time. I think Daniel's also going to, honestly, it's just Jason. Like, we have to keep the guy, keep the leash on the guy. That's it.
He's the problem child?
He is the problem child, for sure. Yeah.
So then what are you?
I'm the father.
Okay. All right. Daddy BK right there. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
That's actually great.
But speaking of team competition a little bit, my first, I guess a lot of people's first exposure on a broader public scale, I think, what came in 2014 during the Invitational when it was in America in San Jose. You and Lucas were both on that team. And I remember specifically one of the team training sessions in, I think it was one of Kalipa's gyms that he had for a corporate, and seeing these like 2 young European guys, and everyone's like, oh, like, are they the kind of next wave? And you're like this like young kind of bright-eyed guy jumping into the mix with, Rich and Jason and a lot of these guys. And now a decade plus, you're almost in that role. Like that role is kind of reversed a little bit. I don't know what comes to mind when you think about that journey for 10 years and now kind of getting to be the elder statesman in that situation.
Well, yeah, while you're saying this, I think the first thing that comes in mind is probably when I was starting to do CrossFit, and I know I wanted to figure everything out. I wanted to see what Rich was doing. I've actually told him this maybe a year later. Not that year, but I told him I've probably watched his YouTube videos like 500 times, trying to dive into his training, whatever he was doing, I wanted to be doing. But just being there at that spot with those guys was like, that was just crazy to me. I was more of a fanboy at that time, for sure. I was just like super honored to be, picked on the European team to compete against the role models, and those guys are still being talked about a decade later, and then I just wanted to be like in their footsteps, and I feel like I've outside of winning the games, I've pretty much been there for now 10 years, so just super honored to be still doing this, honestly.
Yeah. And it kind of touching on that, the athlete checklist is a term that I've kind of coined, that each athlete kind of has in their mind, that the boxes they want to more or less tick before they decide to hang it up. I mean, you mentioned obviously winning the games. I think that's first and foremost, but is there anything else on the athlete checklist, whether it's experiences or events that you want to go to or things you want to do in the sport that still kind of is left unchecked at this point?
Well, I think that, once I got like a little bit older and a little bit like wiser, I feel like I have some things to say, like to, well, maybe the upcoming generation, especially like from Iceland, because obviously there's CrossFit is huge there, and I try my best to like share my just share the things that I've been learning over the last 10 years, and I feel like that's giving me something that I didn't think would give me at any point, like, because I think that I was just in this for me, and I just wanted to be like the best in the world, and then all of a sudden I care about what other people are doing, and just trying to like help people to reach their goals gives me some kind of satisfaction. So but I don't want to take anything. I don't feel like I need to take anything else from maybe the CrossFit Games outside of, like you said, winning. but it's pretty frustrating to have, come pretty close to being at least second. So I want to try to, beat that podium spot and go for the first or second.
Yep. Speaking a little bit to your career after CrossFit, or what you want to do after CrossFit, is there some kind of way that you want to give back to the CrossFit community when it comes to like educating the younger generation or coaching, or like where do you see yourself once you do hang your hat up with the games?
That's a hard question, because obviously I haven't given it, too much of a thought. But like I was saying before, like I feel like I am changing my attitude a little bit towards this. And I feel like I just have at this point so much experience that it would be, I would be throwing something away if I didn't give other people some help in some ways, whether that's, coaching, or I don't know, if I go into even learning how to be, I don't know. What do you call it? A PT? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trainer.
But yeah, or like, I don't know. I just feel like that's the only thing that I have, right? Like I haven't studied anything, so I should probably use what I've got, instead of saying just like pressing stop button and just go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you'll probably see me with you guys long after I've stopped competing.
Mm-hmm.
That's safe to say.
Yeah. And Snorri, kind of from your perspective, you've had a chance to work with a ton of different athletes, but, kind of looking at BK's career as a whole, and even with still, good years ahead of him, what do you think, like, when all is said and done, what will characterize his impact on the sport?
I think the consistency, the lifestyle, the simple lifestyle he lives, he doesn't forget to have fun. He does not forget to entertain himself and let loose every now and then, which is very important and is something that other athletes neglect. They sometimes neglect themselves. 365 days a year, they are so super focused on performance that they forget to have fun and burn out from it. Yeah. So I think he has created a formula for his lifestyle that brings him genuine happiness, and he could share those values. He could be a very good mentor to a young athlete just in talking them through the do's and don'ts. Mm-hmm. But what he is disciplined. He is on time. He never takes a day off. If he was supposed to be doing something, he's doing it. And his work accumulated through time has led to his success. So I think he is in many ways the model, the prototype, or one of the prototypes for how to ensure longevity in this sport. And him being a 10-time CrossFit athlete, which is a very rare thing. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he would add a couple or triple or a quadruple to that from here. So, and that's all down to the lifestyle he leads and the balance he finds in things, how he doesn't overstress nutrition every day. He will just have something crazy one day, but it doesn't change the whole thing. And he will go out and party one night, but then he'll get back into the rhythm. Mm-hmm. He will never come hardly down on himself for not being disciplined for a short period of time. He can always bounce back to the routine that has made him so successful. And I think it's an actual key for how long he has made it. So, and he has a lot to offer. There's a lot of functioning brain cells still in that head of his. So I would not really worry about what happens beyond his career, but it's an honest answer for him. He's so dialed in and he is so focused on his goal that he is not planning beyond that. I am, however, I have a very good idea of where I would like to see his steps go. And I may be enforcing those plans.
Do you want to share?
No, absolutely not. But
all right.
subconsciously, I am making moves on his behalf that he, of course, is aware of.
Yeah.
But we are keeping the main thing, and that is winning the CrossFit Games, because he still has what it takes for that.
Well, and it's clear that from your resume that you do have some kind of recipe for success to longevity. We talk about balance. We talk about having discipline in the gym. I know you mentioned earlier today that you like to ski, but what are some other ways that you find balance, or you've been able to find that you can work into your life to give yourself longevity with CrossFit?
Yeah. Well, Snorri, that was actually very true what Snorri was saying before. I think I'm very good at balancing things out. I think, I train a lot. We all do. We train multiple hours a day, like, weeks in years. And it's just like it adds up if you never allow yourself to do anything. So I like to talk, like I talked about this in this Icelandic podcast one time, but it was like, you've been like high up here, we've been like high up here for months. And if you're never going to come down and even go below the line and be like a little dirty for a night or two, then, you will never know the differences in between. So it's almost like I've been up here for way too long. I need to go way down to the basement in order to pick me up again. And that's what keeps the balance there. I'm not saying you need to go and be like shit-faced for weeks. I'm just saying whatever makes you feel good, whether it's going and, skiing or party or go somewhere, on a vacation or whatever it means, just whatever that means for you, is probably right. So balancing that out a little bit. The other thing is, I still live with my brother, my younger brother. We've lived together now for 29 years. He's 29. I'm
Never moved out.
I'm 31.
Yeah.
How's that? What's that like?
Well, they just bought their apartment, so they are like renting at my place, and that's been happening for the last, I don't know, 4 years or something. Before he got a girlfriend, he was still just with me. We lived together. So that has actually kept things like a little bit more chilled, because he is not in that space. Like,
does he do CrossFit at all?
He does do CrossFit, and I think honestly, he probably had. He could probably be better than I was. Like, he probably had more talent than I for CrossFit, but he just doesn't have the, the discipline, basically. Yeah, that's true. So that has just kept things just like chilled at home. Like, I come home and, my brother is just not thinking about CrossFit, and that just helps my mind. And I think it has actually been a huge part of my how I can just like relax myself a little bit, is because I have friends that don't do CrossFit. I live with my brother. He does it just like an average Joe, and I think that has been a key to many things.
Mm-hmm. I only have one more question, and it was funny. It was something that popped up as I was just going back and doing some event research. Do you know that when you type in your name in Google, you show up as an Icelandic composer? Is that your doing, Snorri? What is that about?
Absolutely not. But does he show up as this guy, but an Icelandic composer still?
If you type in Bjorgvin Karl Guomundsson on Google, and if you're a noteworthy person, it'll have your name and then your occupation below it, so you understand. Like, and it says Icelandic composer. I was like, oh,
like music composer?
I assume so. I don't know. BK, you holding out on us? What is it?
I have no idea. Like, you were telling me news.
Yeah.
By definition, he is a composer of workouts and movements. Yeah. So I guess he's a composer then.
Yeah.
Not an athlete then, just a composer.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely go check that out. I think unless there's another one that I'm not aware of.
No, I don't think there's another Bjorgvin Karl Guomundsson. Well, it's probably Bjorgvin Guomundsson, but you would definitely recognize the differences.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm drawing blanks, so I have to look into this. But this is definitely not my doing.
You know what? I think when you type it in, it's confusing with you with somewhere else. But I thought that was funny. I wasn't sure if that was a little dig from Snorri at some point.
Yeah.
But honestly, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I know, travel day, a long car ride up into the force of Great Britain, but appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, it's good to catch up, and I know Lauren gets to be there the rest of the weekend, but looking forward to seeing what you guys do out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we're going back to Nando's now too.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh, I was gonna say, throw a little extra chicken on there for me. I'm definitely jealous.
No problem. No problem.
Well, thank you guys too. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Huge thanks to Snorri and BKG for taking the time to do that. And look, I think the FitFest, I love the fact that they had a draft to do that team thing. I hope more people mess with that.
Oh yeah. Remember the 2020 games, the team competition that we were
The
going to
one
have
that Mayhem was going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to have something similar, and they were just playing with some competition formats. And I think Snorri made some great points as well, that if this is successful, this is something that can be used to get big name athletes out and competing in different markets in unique and creative ways that doesn't feel like the same thing over and over and over again. And the athletes aren't worried about just getting hammered into the ground and then not being able to recover and have a reasonable off season. This could be something that you can get competition, you can get interaction amongst the sports elites, you can get interaction between the sports elites and fans, and they can have some fun doing it too. And you get to see some personality as a result. Like, you heard Jason, or you heard BK just kind of put Jason Hopper to the screws, kind of saying that everything's going to depend on him and whether or not he goes rogue. And I think that's hilarious, right? It's like personality you don't always get to see. So I hope it's successful. I hope it works out, and I hope to see more of it in the future for sure.
And Rob Kearney has talked about this. Strongman Rob Kearney from HWPO, who's competed at the Arnold Strongman Classic, friend of the show, great dude. And we've talked to him about this, and he's made that point about redefining what a CrossFit competition is, that maybe it doesn't have to be 3 days of 9 events. Maybe it can be 2 days of 5 or something like this that the FitFest is trying. I wish that there was a stream. I would love to check it out. I know that they're going to do a lot on social media. So if you guys haven't followed FitFest on Instagram, do it. Lauren Kalil is over there to help them out with some of their coverage. But I'm really intrigued to see what the response is from both the athletes and the fans. I think this is going to be, I think it's fantastic. And I agree with Snorri. Like this kind of stuff, it's when the athletes know that they can go have fun and they're not going to get just pounded into the ground, more opportunities to get them out in front of people and get them competing and a chance to maybe make some money. So win-win for everybody, I think.
Yep, totally.
All right. Other competition going on is the Legends Championship. That's going on in Arizona right now.
Yeah.
They are early in that. And if you go right now, we're going to the leaderboard on Competition Corner, and I think there's only results for one division.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the women's 55 to 59-year-old division. They did one event. It was a swim event. It was called Every Breath You Take. And one thing I love about Bob Jennings is that he always themes his the names of his workouts, his events. When we were there, I think in 2021, since we were in San Diego, everything was from Anchorman, which was great.
Yes.
So this one is Every Breath You Take. You have it's a 9-minute time cap. You do 15 single arm dumbbell shoulder to overhead each side, so 15 each. 100-meter swim, 12 single arm dumbbell shoulder to overhead, 100-meter swim, 9 100-meter swim, and then they have the weights listed. But that's the only test event that has taken place so far. Again, there's no
something similar to that.
Pardon?
I've done a very similar workout to that.
Really?
Actually. Yeah, it's it was at the Iron Games a few years back. It was a team relay, but involved, I want to say 10 or 12 single arm shoulder to overhead, and then 100-meter swim. It was when it's actually that's a very fun split of those two movements, because the single arm shoulder to overhead, you can kind of rip, and it's a little bit of a trap, because if you just grip it and rip it and go, you can get your breathing out of rhythm and jack your heart rate up a little bit, and then you dive into the water and you're like,
because the swim isn't that far. That's like a lap, right?
It's not. It's a lap, and but it's enough to where if you're unfamiliar and it's you swim with your head out of the water like a bobber, then it's going to be tough. And just remember to wear jammers and appropriate swim attire, because we didn't bring it. And I think I posted a photo a while back. It was
I remember that.
And my all we had was swim in underwear, and it came down to my cheekers. But,
oh man! But the other event names that are on this competition, you have Under Pressure, Hell's Bells, Jump, and then the final one has not been announced yet. But
they went with Van Hagar.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Jump was still David Lee Roth.
It was.
Yeah, it was 1984.
Oh my gosh!
I think that may have been his last album with them before he left, and then it was Van Hagar, because I think the next one was 5150, may have been their next album after that, and that was the first one with Sammy Hagar. Pretty sure about that. Could be wrong, but I think 84 was their last album with David Lee Roth before Hagar came in. Anyway, we digress. But no live stream available for that, but they are doing stuff on social media. And this, I hope this changes. I don't understand why the CrossFit Games account is not reposting this stuff. Maybe they have. I haven't checked recently. I'll check right now. But as we talked about on our last show, Wheel Wad happened. They're going to be doing your championship event next year. You had the Games account had one post about that. I hope that is going to change. I'm going to go to the account right now, and I don't see anything regarding Legends. So I hope that changes.
Hope so too.
All right.
Got to show some solidarity.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, just because they're not the championship event yet doesn't mean we can't get behind them. And Legends runs a fantastic event. Bob and Joe do such a good job. The athletes have a great time. It's a first class that they program it well. I don't know why you wouldn't want to promote that more.
There's games athletes and games champions and podium finishers across the board in nearly every division. I mean, you have some big names competing. Dan Bailey and Easy Muhammad are on the leaderboard for the 35 to 39.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you go down, and even in some divisions, like the men's 45 to 49, our guy Jason Grubb, all three podium finishers from the men's are there. The top five, including a friend of the show, Mike Kern, as well, and Justin LaSala. Like they have
guys.
Majority of the games field from that division there. Shout out our friend Haley Queller, who a listener of the show, and we met her at Legends a couple of years ago at Mayhem. But it's a very deep and talented competition field, and even if it's just a simple reposting of stuff,
just repost
some stuff out there and showcase it.
Absolutely. Okay. One community support that we want to get to. This was sent to me earlier today, actually. This is from Adam St. Germain. He is the PTO for his daughter's school in North Ferrisburg, Virginia. He's trying to raise some money for the parent-teacher organization. So that's a PTO. So PTA, PTO, that's what they call it. To continue to host programs and activities for the school. $1 equals 20 meters. So what he's trying to do is do a marathon or longer. I believe he's going to row this thing. He's a third of the way to his goal. There's a Facebook page. Let me see if I can go to that right now and just tell you if you go on Facebook. So it's a marathon or more. You know what? Let me see if I can look this up and just pop it up on the screen so people can check this out. You know what? I logged out. All right. We'll do that. But it's marathon or more. You can search for that on Facebook. He's raised $779. He's looking for 2,000. So yeah, I just want to help him get the word out. So go to Facebook, just search marathon row for FCS PTO, or you can also search Adam's Instagram account. It's Adam Saint St. Germain, Germain, and you can find the information there. So, yeah, trying to help him raise some money for a good cause.
Cool.
You have anything you want to get out there before we?
I think this was it, maybe. Yeah, I think we all got that one. But I haven't been able to check as much.
There's something screwy going on with Instagram right now.
Yeah, there is.
we had 3 accounts in our company got hacked, including our main one that we're trying to work on recovering. Like Lauren just had hers messed with, and some other people in our. So it's such, and what makes it, what's nice is that Meta has such good and accessible customer service to help you get this stuff taken care of.
Yeah. Oh man.
Crazy.
Frustrating, but we're dealing with it again, obviously.
Yep. Okay. That's it for today. Remember, if you haven't already and you're an Apple iPhone user, go download the Strongest app, check it out, create an account. There's so much good stuff on there that you guys can mess with, and more stuff is coming. And again, we just love to get your feedback on it and forward that to Matthew, because he is really trying to turn that app into something really special. It already is something special with the bells and whistles that you have in there, but more features are coming. So be sure to check out strongest.app on the web. That'll link you to where you need to go, or just go to the App Store and search for it. It's Strongest. Lauren Kalil, she is over in the UK, so be sure to follow what's going on with FitFest. You can watch live streams for the Dubai Fitness Championship. That's coming up in a couple days.
Yeah,
they have day 2 and day 3 scheduled. If anything changes, that might we'll let you know. But they usually have a pretty solid live stream coming from there. And then after that, we are less than. I mean, the Open is now officially right around the corner. After these competitions end, then it's like, okay, now I have to start maybe getting in shape if I'm going to make quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Oof. All right. Thanks to Snorri Barron and Bjorgvin Karl Guomundsson for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate that. Thanks to Lauren Kalil for wrangling them up. Have a great weekend, everybody. For Tommy Marquez and Lauren Kalil, I'm Sean Woodland. Take care of each other. Be better. We'll talk to you guys next time.